Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, whenever you are. Hello, thank you for watching my videos. It's Mike. It's January 30th, 2009. Now, this is a worrying day. There is some very worrying news, and particularly things that are happening in the north of England. But first, a couple of news stories that caught my attention over the last day. They will, of course, be linked. If you wish to investigate this stuff, please go check it out. Now, the first thing is, of course, that Alistair Darling, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, i.e. the Treasurer over here in England, has decided he's not going to go to the World Economic Forum in Davos, currently taking place. Probably a wise move. He'll probably get heckled by many people. This may also be the same reason why Timothy Geithner is not going. Geithner, however you pronounce his name. Now, ostensibly, the Chancellor's office is basically saying that the reason he's not going is because he was going to be meeting with some people who are also no longer going. So Timothy Geithner's not going, a couple other major economic ministers are not going, so he's decided not to go. But I got thinking, well, what's going on? Why would he not go? Why is he focusing on issues here in England? And what sort of issues is he focusing on? So I started thinking, much like the Chancellor would be thinking. Now, of course, the Prime Minister and the Chancellor are both lawyers by education. They're not economists, but who knows? Maybe they'll figure something out eventually. Right, so the Bank of England yesterday announced that they would be beginning the purchase of up to £50 billion of corporate bonds and corporate debt. Now, of course, the trick with all of this is that they're not actually buying the bad debt. They're going to go and buy decent debt. So they're actually going to buy investment-grade debt. And linked at the side, there's a copy of the letters from Alistair Darling to the Bank of England and from Mervyn King to the Chancellor's office. So I was searching for another reason. Okay, well, it's an important reason, but this particular plan isn't going to work terribly well, so I'll skip that for now. So I found another little article, looked at the Express for some reason. Britain facing a deeper recession than any nation. Now the latter sentences of this are basically a condemnation of Gordon Brown and his policies, and also his statement he came out with that his claim that the recession was only the difficult birth pangs of a new global order, which I thought was a rather interesting turn of phrase. However, I didn't think that was the reason that would keep Darling in the country. Now, another article popped out this morning was Iceland could join the EU by 2011. So they're rushing through the conversion from the local Icelandic currency, which is tanking, to actually become part of the EU and euro, and replace the currency with the euro. Which I thought, well, maybe this is something that Britain is investigating, but of course that's a long-term thing. But then I thought, okay, now hang on a second. There's got to be something going on that's keeping these people here. Then there was a news story on the BBC last night. I don't normally watch the BBC, but I made myself a rather scrummy dinner last night and sat down and actually watched some television. I don't really watch television, but I was watching BBC News. And this story popped out. Hundreds join refineries walkout. I thought, well, what is this? A wildcat strike over foreign workers at oil refinery. And more workers walk out as job protests spreads. I was thinking, now we're getting somewhere. Maybe the Prime Minister and the Chancellor are worried about the sudden surge of protests appearing at this refinery. Now, what it is basically there's an oil refinery in the north of England. It's Total, I think. Yep, Total's Lindsay oil refinery is near Grimsby in the north of England. And there's been a dispute there because basically Total has farmed out a contract to do some construction work, and the winner was an Italian company. And the Italian company, or I believe it's Italian, will be bringing in up to 200 Italian and Portuguese workers to do this construction work at the plant. Now, British workers are getting a little upset about this, and all kinds of bad things are happening. Now, maybe they're worried that that's going to turn into a much bigger kind of protest. And next week, indeed, a lot of the unions are planning a protest march down to London and will be marching around Parliament, shouting at the Prime Minister. Now, of course, this could turn rather ugly, as it did in France yesterday. In France, more than 1 million people took to the streets across France, protesting the government and the government's action or inaction, as the case may be, within this current economic crisis. So I guess they're kind of worried that's going to start getting rather nasty here in England. Now, when there are millions out of work, they'll soon be clamoring for affordable housing. So the Prime Minister came out today and basically said, let's build a whole bunch more council houses. Now, one of the statistics in the article today was that last year, 375 new council houses were built in the UK. 375. Now, the biggest problem is the local councils, when they're building these council houses, have to go through all sorts of rigmarole to actually get money out of the Treasury and to do this. And so Gordon Brown and Alistair Darling are coming out and saying that old arguments and ideology to stop us getting on with the work, where there are families who need homes, when there are bricklayers, carpenters, and electricians ready and willing to work, and when there are construction companies ready to build houses. So perhaps this will be the next little stimulus plan here in the UK. Let's go build a whole bunch of houses for all these people who are suddenly out of work. So then I thought, well, okay, there's something else happening. There's been an unprecedented fall in air cargo. First, of course, shipping from Asia has completely dried up, using actual, boats. Now, air cargo is also dropping dramatically. And air cargo carries something in the order of 60% of the goods being brought into Europe and into United Kingdom. So, and then of course Japanese economy is collapsing quite dramatically. The number of unemployed in Japan is quite high, and it's just basically been like that started. Jobless rate in the States is climbing like crazy. We're going to have over 2 million newly unemployed people in the States this month, based on the current rate of, over 500,000 new unemployment claims every week. So, it's all getting rather nasty rather quickly. Maybe that's why Darling has decided to decline his little trip over to Davos. Now, here's something very interesting that I stumbled across. And it's just a little news story. Doesn't really have much meaning until you think about it a bit. Now, in the Toronto Star yesterday, there was an article about Honda closing their or cutting production at the Alliston plant. Now, in that article, they said there will be no employees laid off. What they neglected to put into that article is that they'll be laying off the contract workers instead. So over here, 2 articles linked, one from Toronto Star and one from the Barrie Observer. The Barrie Observer basically saying, okay, they're going to dismiss these contract workers, and Honda doesn't need to tell you how many they're dismissing. So how many of their staff are actually on contract? And if you're a contract worker, are you eligible for unemployment? Okay, folks. Peace, love, understanding. Think about things. Don't freak out. And to my young viewers out there, we've seen much worse than this. We will get through this. Okay. Peace.